And you argue that in the information age, criminal syndicates operate openly, not only through the corruption of the media, but the manipulation of the financial markets. How is that?
Yeah, let's talk about finance first. I mean, my background is in finance. I was counsel to the Finance Committee in the Senate for 7 years, worked in about 35 countries, usually with finance ministers. I came onto the scene in 1980 as a true believer in what's called the Chicago model. Chicago model, very simply, is money is smarter than people. You know, just let money work its will worldwide, everything will turn out fine. The Chicago model has now morphed into what we call the Washington Consensus. We're now branded with this. As Finance Committee counsel, I helped craft the law that took the funds under management from about 800 billion in 1980 to about 17,000 billion by mid-2007. That's a very large amount of money. It's difficult to comprehend that amount of money. That force is now working worldwide. There is a capital market working open somewhere in the world. And what it says is to deploy that money out there and look to find what? Money. Any value that's not calibrated in money doesn't count. You know, pun intended, it doesn't count. So when you pull that net back in, you're looking for money, and what do you find? Money. And you go, eureka, I found what I was looking for, right? Now, if any value that's not denominated in money doesn't show up, so all those values essential for long-term sustainable communities and nations, civil cohesion, fiscal foresight, environmental sustainability, all that is gone. Now, how did that get embedded in my mind? I'm the son of a Chicago-educated PhD. I probably got this around the dinner table. You know, by the time I go through undergraduate school, law school, and show up at the Finance Committee, I'm like a true believer in the same way some of John Hagee's people are true believers. You know, I'm looking through this frame that says this is the way the world works. How did that get embedded in our mindset so we would think that a rational thing to do? That's what we're trying to tease out in the Criminal State series, saying how were we seduced to freely embrace the very forces that systematically undermine our freedom? That's what this series is about. The way that this corruption works is by displacing facts with beliefs in plain sight. Iraqi WMD, ties to Al-Qaeda, that sort of thing. In order to do that at the level of the nation or globally, you really need dominance in media. And why do you need that? Robert Gates, the Defense Secretary, coined a brilliant phrase. He said, when you're waging unconventional warfare, now it's not unconventional for those waging the warfare, it's unconventional for those on whom it's being waged, meaning the Americans, the Iranians, and others. The most troubling combatant is what he called the people in between. If you're trying to govern a country based on informed consent, it's essential for the population to have access to facts. Between me and the facts, if I turn on CNN and I got Wolf Blitzer and I've got some issue to do with Middle East, I'm not going to get the facts. Wolf Blitzer is 17 years with the Jerusalem Post. You know, he was an editor for Near East Report, which is a journal for the Israeli lobby. He wrote a very sympathetic book on Jonathan Pollard, the Israeli spy. So when you turn on CNN, you get Wolf Blitzer. Are you getting news? Are you getting facts? Are you getting propaganda? Right? Now the challenge is, if you look back at how we were induced into this war, if you look at the ownership and the dominance in media in the United States, it's largely Jewish Zionist and Christian Zionist. So when you're trying to get the facts of whether or not we should go to war, you could not get access to the facts. There is nothing more threatening to a system of governance based on informed consent than for someone to have an undisclosed bias that is pretending to bring you the facts. In the information age, that's a good definition of treason. You are deceiving people who are relying on your facts to take them to war. If that's not treason in the information age, I don't know what is. In this oft-occurring conflicts of opposites manipulation chronicled in this account, each new offensive weapon evokes a new defensive weapon, just as each new defense catalyzes a new offense. Thus the focus in this account on identifying those who catalyze serial conflicts of opposites while profiting off the misery of both sides.
How would you say that the current financial crisis is related to the transgenerational corruption and treason you talk about in your book?
Yeah, the financial markets, I mean, you'll find over the last 20 years, we had a series of what we call pump and dumps. You have the savings and loans pump and dump. You pump the stocks up, you dump them. Oftentimes the people at the top will skim out money at the top, so when the stocks go back down, they've got cash to buy the assets at the bottom. You're seeing that again now. Okay, we had a series of these. The way you pump up a stock is with ratings on the stock. Now you found, for example, in the case of what we call the dot-com crash, you found a guy named Jack Grubman who was working for Sandy Weil at Citigroup. He would routinely pump up these stocks. Rhythm's Net Connections was one of them, for example, that was a stock used in the Enron fraud, right? So you found that every time you look behind the scenes to see who is doing this, you find the same sort of, I hate to say a faith community because I don't want to discredit the legitimate Jewish community, but you find the same sort of criminal syndicate that is discrediting that faith community by these actions. So we're trying to make that transparent as well, because much of this thuggery and this criminality is carried out through the financial markets.
And how will efforts to restore confidence in the financial system ultimately succeed? The
way the current markets are framed, I don't know that it can succeed. It's so subject to manipulation. I mean, I'm going to this evening to Pakistan and perhaps to Afghanistan, and to propose there that really what you need to do is find another way to create purchasing power. The only way we know to monetize anything in the United States is first to have a bank that you borrow money from a bank, the bank takes that note to the central bank creates money. What we're trying to say is, look, if you want to address the causes of extremism, go at the core of this. Go at the people for whom war is a means to create debt. Debt is a prize. Rest assured, if you look behind, you will find debt. The United States is taking on $3 trillion worth of debt to wage this war. That includes $700 billion in interest. We're going bankrupt running a war basically for Israel, is the way we're running it for. But if you look behind how this operates, the reason for going to the region, meaning Pakistan and at this point today, is to propose a different way to monetize purchasing power. Now that sounds a little egg-headed. Let me tell you what that means, okay? The only way we know to create money in the United States is by first you take out a loan, the bank then takes that note to the central bank, and the bank discounts that note. And it creates a lot more purchasing power, which becomes demand, as we call it in the economy. What we need to do instead is we need to monetize the physical assets essential for healthy communities. We need to go into Afghanistan and Pakistan and developing countries and say, we want to create purchasing power that is secured not with debt, but secured with physical assets, education facilities, healthcare facilities, clean, affordable energy, housing. You know, you can create currencies with which people can be paid in their communities, and those currencies can be created in those communities. We know how to do this. We did it during the Great Depression. We had 5,000 currencies that were secured by everything from livestock to lumber. You know, so we need to bring back common sense as to how we create prosperity by creating purchasing power and demand, the stuff that people use, you know, to exchange value with one another, and not require that you first have debt in order to do that. Because the criminal syndicate that we're profiling in these books, they've been around a very long time. And what you find is, if you look behind it, debt is always the prize, right? So we're saying, look, you know, it's happened to us in the United States. We've been trying to sell you this model, unfortunately successfully, for several decades. We need a different model. The only way we're going to get out of this is to go at the core of what creates extremism, which is primarily poverty and indignity. You know, get people education, health care, housing, affordable food, clean energy. We know how to do all those things. We know that the hard technology, the physical technology is known. What's missing is the financial technology. And so that's the piece that we're trying to bring to the mix, to say, look, there's a different way to do this. Use your common sense. Don't get sucked into this Washington consensus. It doesn't work, hasn't worked anywhere we've gone so far. It creates oligarchies everywhere we've implemented it. You know, I'm sorry, you know, it was a bad idea. And we've got a better idea. We know how to monetize the very assets that are needed there. Let's get on with it.